From opera star to executive coach, bridging the gap from who you are to who you could be. Awareness plus action equals transformation. My guest today, Elena Armijo, is here to tell us all about it on the HR and Leadership Spotlight Show. Elena, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much, Chuck, for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. So where are you coming from today, out of curiosity?
Yeah, well, I'm in Los Angeles now. My partner and I moved here about 6 months ago. So we're trying out the California lifestyle for a while.
Nice. So before we begin, because I want to hear all about it. I mean, seriously, opera star, and not just someone that did opera for a year or two, where, I'm going to try opera, but I didn't really make it. So I'm going to try something else. Like 15 years as an opera singer on stages across the world, singing in every possible language you could imagine. And now you're an executive coach. So that's a great story. And I can't wait to get into it. But before we do, did you bring anything for us today?
I did. I brought my mug. It's right here. This is, I don't have a branded mug, which I should probably work on for the future, but that's a future project. But this mug was given to me by my uncle. I grew up in Las Cruces, New Mexico, which is a very small town, a border town near El Paso, Texas. And there is a beautiful woman who creates ceramics there that is Native American and uses some of these beautiful flowers to create colors with her ceramics. So my uncle got me this for Christmas one year, and I always think of him and home when I use it.
That is awesome. In fact, there's a lot of neat, awesome things about you. You travel at least 2 or 3 times a year to places you've never been, correct?
Yes.
Your oldest friend was 103. I mean, you have so many fascinating things, but opera star to executive coach. Tell us all about it. How does Elena, the girl from New Mexico outside of El Paso, become a world famous opera star and now really a very successful executive coach?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love that you keep calling me a world famous opera star. I'm going to put that on my wall. I don't know if other colleagues would have felt the same way about it. But what I will say is, I did have a good stint in the opera career and got a real taste for the lifestyle and the career and the business aspect of it all. And how do I make it, I think that there's so much about how we are built in the world comes from how we grew up. And I used to watch my parents work really, really hard. They both worked. My mom worked multiple jobs. My dad worked the same job for 40 years. Even in retirement, he still works that job. And so as a kid, I watched them work hard and be successful. They are first generation immigrants themselves, or my dad is at least. And so I watched them work really, really hard for their success. And I keep saying that over and over because in my brain, my kid brain, I made that mean that if you worked hard, you were safe, successful, and loved. And that's something that I carried with me forever. And it got me really far, so far that it took me, into an opera career. But the lie of that is that what I got to when I was on stages is this emptiness in performing. I always loved music and I never intended to make it a business, but people kept paying me to sing and I kept following the path and I kept saying, well, I guess this is what I should do and what I'm meant to do. It's all those shoulds in your life to watch out for. And I ended up singing and just becoming very lonely and very, I missed a lot of things. I missed my brother's birthday parties. Relationships would fall apart pretty easily. And I remember thinking, I don't think that I want to do this for the next 20 years. And I had massive guilt, tremendous amounts of guilt, because there were lots of singers that were working very hard to be in the position I was in. And I'd worked really hard my whole life. So I had to get over that, like, wow, now what am I going to do when I pivot and leave all this behind? That seems really terrible. Yeah. And pivoting was really what I did. And so I hired a coach myself. I came off the road and did some internal work and really had to look that, myself in the mirror to see that I had built an entire career on proving my worth to the world. And
Okay.
now was the first time to ask, what do I really want to do?
So you hired a coach yourself.
I did.
That in itself is a story because a lot of people don't realize that hiring a coach is actually accessible and affordable, and it could help because I think a lot of people figure, oh, what are they going to tell me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
go
what you
ahead.
got? Go ahead.
No, so you did that, and what did it share with you that you wanted to be an executive coach yourself? I that's amazing.
Yeah, well, the connection wasn't quite so seamless. I mean, I want to go back to what you said for just a second because I think it's really important that people do know coaching is accessible. Where I grew up, people didn't have coaches. That wasn't a
Mhm.
thing. The only people I knew that worked with coaches were high-powered CEOs that had a lot of money. So you're right. There are so many ways to get coaching and so many access points. I promise you, uh, especially if you come to me, we can find you a coach in your price range. That's what I tell everybody. If you come through my door, we will find you who you want to work with that will work for you. So I was really grateful that this woman took me on and, was in my budget at that moment, even though it was a stretch. I trusted that that was the move. And I ended up in a coach training program because I thought it was the fastest way to fix myself. So again, I wasn't interested in becoming a coach at that point. I just knew that I really needed to figure out why I was so unhappy and what I wanted to do in the world. And by month 4 or 5 of that intense leadership and training development course, I fell in love with coaching. And I thought, okay, this is the first thing on my entire journey that I've loved as much as I love music. And I actually can see myself building a business through it.
Fantastic. Well, tell us about your business and what you're doing now and what you call it. I could say it, but I want you to tell the audience.
Yeah, well, I was doing private coaching, so a very small LLC for about 8 years. And then I realized, wow, we can have a lot more impact if I work with people instead of working solo. And so I launched a business called the CSuite Collective this past November in 2021. And the entire mission and vision of the collective is to have a network of very vetted professionals, coaches, holistic practitioners that work on different modalities of health that are all vetted, all extremely good at what they do. They own their own businesses. So we're all really, truly a collective of people that have one vision in mind. And that vision and mission for the world is that we can change culture from the inside out of a company. So that's what we exist for, to come in and sit down with you and say, what's going on with your culture? Is it inclusive? Do people
Mhm.
feel like they belong? Are you having tough conversations? Is there a culture of trust? Is there a culture of feedback? Is all of that allowed? And so we kind of just sit down with the C-suite executives and we say, where do you want to be in a year? Let's co-create that together. And then we make a magical package for that company to be in partnership for the whole year.
I love that. I love that. And so, your statement, I wrote it down over here, awareness plus action equals transformation. And that is bolded and highlighted and larger font on your website. Can you
Yes.
delve into that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. That's something I learned early on in my own development. And it's the concept that if you have awareness, that's great. But without action, it doesn't mean anything. And if you have action, that's great. But if you don't have an awareness behind what that action is doing or serving in the world, it doesn't mean anything either. So awareness and action together equal transformation in some beautiful, beautiful ways. And that can really be applied to anything.
Mhm. That's great. I love that. I love the concept. I love the fact that you chose the word. I love so many things. People are like, that's all the Chuck does is love, love, love. But
That's good.
I
You have a
get
good
it.
heart.
Well, I get excited. You could have called it the network.
Yeah,
You could have called it, but I'll bet you gave a lot of thought to that word collective.
did.
And I love that term. Is there any insight you want to provide as to why you chose the term collective with the group?
Yeah. I think if we're going to get anywhere in this world, we have to go together, all of
Mhm.
us. And that's every human being on the planet. And so, collective to me was the foundation for people working together instead of doing this all alone. The entire notion of hiring a coach for some is foreign, and they've never had this kind of support in their life. And imagine a world where you're over supported in ways that you could never even dream possible through a collective, a group of people, and what that would actually provide you in your life. And I know what it's done for me. I do not exist. My business doesn't run without my teams. My
Mhm.
life doesn't run without my teams. My partner, Aaron, is, the solid center of my home base team. And so I think in ways of creating around me through people gathering together as opposed to doing it all alone, which is what I did for a long time. I did it alone and it was hard and it wasn't fun. And I
Yeah.
didn't get very far.
No, but you've pulled folks together, and it sounds like you're having a quite the unique offering. So what,
Yeah.
how, and we'll get in a few minutes how people could get in touch with you, and I'll
Sure.
put that in the show notes below. But talk about that experience. So I might get to the point that I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. I'm a little shy.
Hmm.
I don't want to admit that I have a problem. Do I need a
Yeah.
coach?
I love
What?
that you're using quotation marks because that's really how we view it.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah, that was
necessarily a problem.
a one-handed quotation marks. Talk to me
Yeah.
about the that intake process, how that works, and what people would be able to expect here.
Yeah, well, the first thing I'd say is if you're willing to have the conversation, that's brave. It's the courageous first step is calling somebody up and saying, I don't know anything about this, but I'd like to learn more. That's all you need is to pick
Okay.
up the phone or write an email. And what we'll do from that point forward is we'll sit down and we'll say, what do you actually want in your life? That's the very first place we start. What do you want in your business? What do you want in your life? What's missing for you? What's the experience you want to create? And we'll really get clear on what you want versus what you perceive as going wrong. Because there,
Ah,
there really is nothing wrong, right? There's only just choice moving forward.
sure.
So once we get clear on what you're looking for, then we pair you with at least 3 or 4 different coaches to try. Because I believe that coaching is all about finding your partner. Once you get, like, are people really coaches? Do they have credentials? All that stuff out of the way that they're good at their job, it becomes about finding your partner because this relationship is going to be mirroring every relationship you have in your life. So
Mhm.
it's very important that you can trust the person you're talking to. And that's how we start. You pick your coach. You pick who you want to be on this journey with.
Awesome. So, Elena, tell me, what else have I missed? Because I've seen you on a number of interviews. You seem to be an expert in many different facets of business. Is there anything that I've missed? Any messages you'd want to tell the audience, maybe about you, about coaching, or anything else?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing I'd say is even though I appear as an expert as many things, I try to really think about that I don't know anything in the world. So I'm constantly learning.
Sure.
But I think that's important to know because that's part of, what I do in the world too and help people is stay in a learning mindset, a growth mindset, and being open and curious about what we don't know. And I think the other thing to know about me is I'm biracial. I have lived in the middle, the messy middle, I call it, for a really long time. And what I mean by that is, um, my mom is white and my dad is Hispanic, and one is conservative and one is liberal. And, I've traveled to many different cultures all over the world. And I really feel like that has been such a tremendous gift because I'm able to have a love of inclusion and belonging for everyone. And that's what I'm committed to. That's what I want people to know, is a world where we can all sit down at a table and feel seen and heard, and also create magical things moving forward.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, how could people get in touch with you? Talk to me about the websites and the inroads to get hold of Elena.
Yeah, there's three separate ways that you can reach me. So the first is my personal website, which is elenaarmijo.com. Pretty simple. The second is the CSuite Collective, and that website is the c-suitecollective.com. And the third is through my podcast, In a Manner of Speaking, with
Oh,
Elena
yeah.
Armijo.
Tell
Yeah,
us
and you
about
can.
that.
Oh, it's just such a fun little podcast like this. I mean, like Chuck, this is what we do, right? We love to have cool conversations with leaders all over the world that are disrupting the world in some way, or changing how a conversation is going in their respective fields. So we have a lot of fun, and we just, talk about cool concepts, and it's a fun show. So you can check me out there.
Awesome. Well, cool concepts from a cool person. I just think it's really neat how going for opera and such. So let me ask you, do you still sing?
I do. I sing for fun though. Although I don't ever want, singers who are still singing professionally to get, feel like they're being devalued. So I do charge when I sing in public to keep that integrity from my other fellow singers. But I really do love to sing at home, and just sit down with my piano and make some noise.
Awesome. Yeah, I have a cousin, Gary Lakes. Gary, how you doing out there? He's retired
Yeah.
opera singer himself. Has been,
Yeah.
sang at the Met, sang all over the world.
Yeah.
But every time we have a get together, it's, hey Gary, if it's a birthday, Gary might sing Happy Birthday, or he sings. His big thing is Danny Boy. He'll say,
Oh yeah.
Gary,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
always an elder relative there. It's like,
Yeah.
Gary, could you sing Danny Boy for us?
Yeah. Well, Gary, I see
and
you. I
he's
know what it
probably
feels like.
6'5", big guy,
Yeah.
he really
Yeah.
towers in there. So it's fun. So I have an opera singer in my life, and I'm sure your family
Beautiful.
loves having you in
Yeah.
their life too.
They enjoy it.
So we're at the end of our time. Anything else you want to add?
No, this has been really fun. Thanks for having me, and thanks for spreading, the good word all the time.
Awesome. And Elena Armijo, thank you for being on the HR and Leadership Spotlight Show.
Thank you.